This video is the first video in a new series on field testing. The video series is funded through an LSC TIG grant and produced in collaboration with LawNY and Idaho Legal Aid. Today's video, Part 1, will show you how to prepare your text for testing. You will learn how to use two tools that can help you analyze your text to see if it's ready for testing. This video is about checking, improving, and preparing your text for field testing. You will get more from this video if you stop the video at this slide so you can have your text nearby. It's also a good idea to run readability stats for your text before we continue. If you don't know how, go to the Transcend website. The URL is displayed on this slide. You will find step-by-step instructions to determine the reading grade level. You will find lots of tools, information, and classes and tutorials on plain language. During this video, we will mention key aspects of readability in plain language. If plain language is new to you and you want to learn more about it later, please visit writeclearly.org. You will find lots of tools, information, and classes and tutorials on plain language. Your teacher today is Maria Mindlin, and my name is Rafael Miguel. Right now, I am the narrator, and later, I will join you as a participant. Here's some information about Maria's background. She works at Transcend, an agency that specializes in plain English and certified translations. She was the lead author on the first, and so far only, quantitative test of comparative readability study of plain language court forms in the U.S. She drafted and tested plain English documents for legal aid agencies and courts in over 20 states. She was a readability instructor at UC Davis Law School under Professor Richard Wydick, author of Plain English for Lawyers. She edited Brian Garner's Red Book text on visual accessibility. Each of the videos has teaching goals. In this video, you will learn how to look at any text and predict if it will be difficult for your readers. Use your readability instrument to determine grade level. Learn about the Big Four, the four major components of readability. And now, Maria will take it from here.
What is our goal? When we draft legal information for the public, such as information about how to change your name, how to get a protection order, or how to protect yourself from a bad landlord, and many other topics, quite naturally, we want our readers to be able to use the information we provide. If more people can and will read the information we provide, they'll be more successful and have better outcomes. Take just a minute now to say or write down what you want your readers to gain or learn from your text. Will they learn how to file a small claim? Will they know how to ask for child support? Whatever it is, write it down now. We'll come back to it later when we talk about reading interest. This is a list of the things we check for before testing our documents. To get an excellent final result, start with what you consider to be your best draft. It should use words that are easy to understand, match your reader's reading proficiency level, trigger reading interest, look easy so they'll start reading, and also be able to find the information that they need, which is reading persistence. Also use key real estate to your advantage. That means placing your most important information in the most commonly viewed parts of a page. This is based on what we know from eye tracking studies. If you want to guess what those are, think about how your eyes travel when you pick up a newspaper or a magazine article, and we'll come back to it later. Okay, let's jump right in now and start with what linguists call register, or words. This slide is about the words that we choose. Correct. Of course, we want our words to be correct. But it can be hard to convey legal terms in plain language. But don't give up. Use your blacks and use the plain language glossary at writeclearly.org. Clear. This one can be really tough. What is clear to you may not be clear to others. Your readability instrument will tell you when your words are too hard. Concise. This is very important. One thing we know for sure is that reading is not natural. It's not like breathing. It's not like eating. Many people learn to do it. Most do not do it well. So using shorter words and shorter sentences can help a reader feel that he or she will be able to read and understand your information. Remember Hemingway? Well, if we measure the grade level of his great works, we end up at the 6th grade. So don't think of it as dumbing down. Think of it as really communicating. On the next page, we'll give you 2 wonderful tips from Professor Richard Wydick. Here are 2 important tips from Richard Wydick. Eliminate surplus words and use active voice. So let's talk about surplus words. Surplus words are words that add nothing to the meaning. They just take up space on the page. For example, on this slide, what does the word general add? Or information? Of course, we know it's information. And how about naturalization? If this text is in the middle of a document about naturalization, do we need to say that word again and again? How about saying citizenship instead? Here's another example. What about the United States? US is much shorter and is very standard. Now let's look at reading interest. We learned before that that means having a title or a subtitle that reveals what the text is about. Does the current subtitle do that for us? We know from reading theory that readers tend to read the beginning of a line and the end of a line, and usually they skip the middle. In this case, that means we're hiding the most important part, the physical presence requirement, right in the middle. Before we go on to a better way of presenting this information, let's look at the readability stats. This text has 48 words, it's at the 14th reading grade level, and it has 2 sentences. What do you think of that? Too long? Too short? Okay, let's see what you can do with this text to make it easier. Press stop now and see if you can spot some surplus words. And while you're at it, feel free to use easier words. And remember Professor Wydick's advice to use active voice. That means direct address or you. Okay, have fun with this. Look at this. It's so much shorter, and it gets right to the point. We even managed to add key information about what a certain number of days really meant for the reader. So the plain text became more robust than the original. And it's shorter. It's 30% fewer words, which is really a lot. And if this information has to be translated, it means you're going to save on translation fees too, because translation is billed by the word. The grade level is a lot better too. If you're new to readability instruments, the original text was at the 14th grade level. That means high school plus 2 years of college. Most literacy scholars think that in the United States, the average adult American reads at about the 6th grade level. But OECD data tells us that this number is dropping as baby boomers die out. Let's look at this piece and think about the words. How many words are there? Are they the right kind of words? Are they in the right place? What do you think the reading grade level will be? How well does this text do in terms of generating reading interest? Remember, revealing what the topic is about so the reader can see his or her connection to the text is one way of generating reading interest. When we field tested this document, we asked, what is this document about? Some people said, the Legal Aid Society, or the Legal Aid Society legalization. And some guessed that it was about something that was being legalized. Is it pot, drugs, gun laws? This document is for aliens. And let's remember that readers typically read a title, a subtitle, then the eye travels to the bottom right corner of the page. If your reader cannot really see this information is for him or her, and that it answers some important questions, it won't be read. On this slide, we get to see the stats of this difficult document. The document has 435 words, 29% passive voice, which is not good. We'd really want to get our passive voice down in the single-digit numbers. And it's at the 10.8 grade level. So what looks like a pretty simple document for most lawyers is a clear mismatch for most readers. So by now, I'm hoping that each of you got a chance to run readability stats on your own document that you want to field test. Don't worry right now if it was high. After watching this video, you'll be able to improve it. But let's look at some readability stats so we can learn which ones are the most important. Just in case you didn't find this how to measure grade level sheet at the beginning of the video, please pause the video now and look for it. Here's the URL. As you can see, the most important number we're looking for is the Flesch-Kincaid grade level. That's the one we want to be at about 6th or 7th grade. But remember, just because it's a 5th or 6th grade level doesn't necessarily mean your text is great. But if your document is for the public and you're at a 10th or 11th grade level or even higher, it's unlikely that your text will be accessible to most people. The readability stats display a bit differently on PC and Mac, and differently on Word and WordPerfect, but all of them show you the word count, the sentences per paragraph, and remember we want this number to be low, passive voice, and grade level. As a general rule of thumb, no more than 350 words per page. The fewer the words on the page, the greater the likelihood of the text being read. Think about it like minimalist Japanese art, which lets us focus on what is there. We've been talking about these readability features off and on, but it's a good idea to have them in your mind in one place. So let's review. Register. This is about the words, using words that your readers will understand, and using your readability instrument. We've also talked about reading interest and reading persistence. Using a title that is transparent. That means readers know immediately what your text is about. Reading persistence comes from chunking the text in smaller, intuitive bits and making it easy for the reader to find what he or she wants. Visual accessibility is super important. If you can't see it, you can't read it. In a best-case scenario, we use design features that make all the text easy to read, and we highlight the most important text for the reader. So, we've not gotten to the field testing part yet, but think of it as a cycle. When you're actually out there in the field with typical consumers, you'll find out about register, which words people found difficult, reading interest. Did the readers understand what the text was about? Reading persistence. Were the readers able to find everything they needed on the document? And visual accessibility. Could the reader quickly find the most important information? Did they find the document easy to read, easy to use? When we go on to field testing, we'll find out more. Keeping those big 4 points in mind, let's look at some plain language options for this same text. Here are 5 different ways of presenting the legalization information that we were looking at earlier. All of them are in the right range in terms of grade level, and the longest one is about 350 words. The shortest is about 70. You may want a wordier piece to upload to your website. You may want a shorter piece for a poster, an ad, or to reinforce the main points. For our project, our goal was to provide a flyer or maybe a bookmark with the most critical information for the immigrant so that he or she could start getting things in order. We've hinted a little about the testing process. Let's start with some questions for you to answer now. Looking at the very last column, which is the one that we chose for our piece that we field tested, let's talk about reading interest. What are the first things that you see on that page? Undocumented? And if a new law passes? So thinking back what we had before on the piece that started with legalization, so many people were unsure about what the document was really about. But how about now? Would you say that you know exactly what this text is about? Another question we might ask when we field test is this. Glancing quickly, do you think some readers, not you, but some people might have problems with some of these words? And that's when we hand out the yellow highlighters and we get people to highlight the words that some people might find difficult. Here's another question we could ask. If you were undocumented and you had questions or needed help, where would you go or what would you do? So even though this document isn't formatted yet, if we compare it to the original legalization document, it looks like we're getting a lot closer. This slide has the same text as the last slide, but this one uses background colors. I'm showing this to you to emphasize that background colors are usually not good. They make the text significantly harder to read, and you can see this for yourself. Text that is easiest to read uses a very dark font on a very light background. On this slide, we're looking at our new draft side by side with the original. The draft text is still not formatted, but I hope someone out there is saying, wow, it's so much better. The next step is to think about how we're going to display our new text based on what we know about reading theory. We've hinted at this before. Where is the key real estate? The most read areas of a page are the title, which we assume is the line right up at the top, the line that comes right after the title, and then our eye travels to the bottom right corner. For you, that means your most important messages should go in those spots. We know from eye tracking studies that our eyes are drawn to text that is bold and to graphics or photos. And all text needs good contrast. Other things that make information accessible. We know that readers, especially of legal information, often look for an ending prompt that might ask, need help, have questions, or for more information. Okay, line length is an important aspect of page layout, and this graph says it all. We want columns. We don't want them to be too narrow or too wide. Meaningful graphics. By that we mean graphics that really convey something that's connected to the document. So we would hope that when someone sees a court icon, they understand that it's a court. If it's a pretty picture of a flower or a sunset that doesn't really convey anything, then that wouldn't be a meaningful graphic. When we do field testing of our graphics, we point to it and say, what is this about? What does this mean? That way we can check if the graphic is really conveying the meaning we want it to. Here's some examples of other graphics that are meaningful, and these are available for free download at our website. They've been really great to use for legal documents. I'm sure you can find the one that's about eviction or questions, name changes, going to court and talking to the judge with the other party. We've talked about a lot of features today that go into making a highly readable text. It's a lot to remember. You might want to use a check sheet with your own document. You can find this document at the Transcend library. So let's apply the things that we've learned today. We've talked about meaningful graphics. We can look at the logo for Legal Aid Society and decide if that helps to convey some meaning. And real estate. Is the most important information in the right spot? How about the key message? In this document, it's all the way down in the 4th paragraph, which is really way too low for reading persistence. We have pretty good use of bold, but we don't have a help prompt. We're going to start wrapping it up now. At the beginning of the class, I mentioned that you would be able to just look at a document and tell if it was going to be successful or not. So now I'm going to ask you to look at this document and tell me what you think. How does it look in terms of register? You can't use a readability instrument right now, but do you think we're close to the 5th, 6th, or 7th grade level? What about reading interest? Can we tell who it's for? Do we know what it's for? Does the formatting reveal what are the most important parts of the document for the reader? Does the reader have any way of getting more information or help? Well, believe it or not, the previous slide was taken from an immigration website. The goal was to prepare the alien to go to the hearing. Looking at this slide, it's a complete departure from the previous text. We asked immigration attorneys their opinions of what the alien most needed to know to get ready for the hearing. Look at this slide now and tell me, what do you think about the questions, the words? Can you tell right away what this piece is about? Do you know who it's for? Can you see which part has the most important information? Is there a help prompt? Well, actually, there isn't a help prompt, but we set this up to be an interactive file so that each attorney or advocate or organization can insert their name and their contact information. So now you get a chance to work on your text and prepare it for the next cycle. Remember, you want to start with your best draft, words that are clear, correct, and concise, a title that generates reading interest, layout and format that encourages reading persistence, and visual accessibility that reveals the most important information at a glance. In our next video, we're going to be looking at this text. We're going to prepare it for field testing and see how it does.
Thank you for watching today's video. Join us next time for Step 2. Create a testing instrument and set your testing procedures. Thank you.